Hello, and welcome to Making Sense of It. I am Mona Duncan, your moderator, and this program is our gift to you from the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. Every week we have a member of the Glasser Institute come on and tell us how they use Dr. Glasser's amazing concepts and the success that they gain from that. And we are privileged today to have Jim Mishler with us. That's going to be telling us about what makes a quality school. So hello, Jim. Welcome to everyone
Good morning.
that's here and those of you that will be watching later. And welcome, Jim, and thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And I will share the screen and give you permission to take it away.
All righty then, we'll do that. Share that. And we'll do this over here. Okay, thanks for having me on, Mona. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And my topic today is what it means to be a Glasser quality school. And when I started this, it seemed like an easy thing for me to do since I'm the chairperson of the Quality School Committee, and you think I could do this stuff right off the top of my head. And I got into it and started building my PowerPoint, and I realized, oh my, this is a much bigger topic than I originally thought it was going to be. That being said, I tried to boil it down to a few critical elements. I have a PowerPoint here that I'm going to go through, and it's 15 slides. So in 15 slides, I am not going to be covering a lot of information, detailed information, but I'm going to try and give you the highlights so that you can kind of get the feel of what makes a Glasser quality school different from other schools. So that's going to be my underlying agenda, my underlying theme is what makes a Glasser quality school different from other schools. So I'm going to try and address a few critical elements. First one is what makes a Glasser quality school or different is the fact that it has a unified foundation, which is choice theory. It follows a set of principles. It tries to move the locus of control from external to internal, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. The school becomes a needs-satisfying place where students put it in their quality world, and that's an important function. We try to teach students to understand themselves, and we try to teach students how to make choices. And finally, there's an emphasis on self-evaluation and leading to quality performances. So I have, whoops, let me back up there. I have 7 items there, and I have 15 slides. So you know that I'm not going to cover any one of these in a lot of detail, but I hope to be able to show you how this all plays out in a quality school. Okay, so right off the bat, the things that separate a quality school, a Glasser quality school, from most other quality schools are, one, we have choice theory as our guiding light. Choice theory is a complete, as those of you that have been following this broadcast, choice theory is a complete psychological guide for how people live and behave and how we make decisions and how we can be more effective people. So that is our guiding light. And I can tell you, after having been an educator in public education for 40 years, that most public schools do not have that philosophical underpinning. They might have something that looks like it, but as a complete and total package, that underpinning is not there. So we have choice theory as our guiding light, and it's a complete total package. We have our choice theory axioms that I'll talk about here in a couple of minutes, and that gives the highlights of choice theory. These are things that probably don't get talked about day in and day out in a Glasser quality school, but they are foundational to what's going on. It is that mindset that the teachers, the administrators, eventually the students, and if everybody's really on target, the parents, it is the mindset that kind of guides what's going on. Finally, we have a quality school criteria. We've taken that, we being a Glasser Quality School Committee, we've taken the choice theory and Dr. Glasser's writings about quality schools, and we've boiled them down. Dr. Glasser had some criteria, so we've brought the criteria into the 21st century, and we have a very extensive rubric that I'm not going to talk about today, but we have a very extensive rubric. So we have some guiding principles. We have a guiding light, we have some foundational axioms, and then we have our criteria for what it is to be a quality school. And finally, probably more so than in any other school setting, it's about relationships. It's always about relationships, and Glasser Quality Schools spend a tremendous amount of time building those relationships. Okay, real quickly, here are the 10 axioms. And remember, these are foundational. We don't necessarily talk about them day in and day out, but they are guiding principles that once you adopt and understand what choice theory is all about, you start to use these axioms in guiding what you're doing. They're not necessarily educational, but they are foundational to understanding what's going on. So the first one is the only person whose behavior you can control is your own. All we can do is give or get information to other people, and how we deal with that information is our choice. I have that on my email, and every time I send out a memo, I would put that little tagline at the bottom. All I can do is give you information. What you choose to do with it is your choice. All long-lasting psychological problems are relationship problems. That's why we focus on relationships so much in school. The problem relationship is always in our present life. It's not a past thing. It's usually in our present. What happened in the past might be painful, but it has a great deal with who we are today. But reliving the past can contribute little or nothing to what we need to do right now. Improve an important relationship. Staying focused and staying in the present is, again, it's a foundational principle of choice theory. We're driven by our 5 genetic needs: survival, love and belonging, power, freedom, and fun. Those things I will be talking about again in a few minutes, and they drive us to do the things that we do. We can satisfy these needs only by satisfying a picture or pictures in our quality worlds, which basically means that for each of those needs, we have a picture in our head and of what perfect looks like to us. My perfect is not the same as your perfect, but it looks perfect to us. So we have these pictures in our head, and each one of these pictures, or we may have several thousand pictures, each of them satisfies and helps us understand a particular need. All we can do from birth to death is behave, and all our behavior is total behavior. And that's made up of inseparable components such as acting, thinking, feeling, and physiology. On the school side of things, we like to say all behavior is purposeful. We do things because we are trying to get a need met. So every behavior has a purpose. Understanding that, and when you're looking at it from a school side and you see a child who's struggling, if you understand that their behavior is trying to tell us something, that becomes a foundational principle, and that becomes something that you can build off with the student. All total behavior is recognized by verbs, usually infinitives and gerunds, and named by the component that's most recognizable. And finally, all total behavior is chosen, but we have direct control over only the acting and thinking components. And that's important, and that's important for everyone to understand. You can control your thinking very overtly, and you can control your actions very overtly. Your physiology and some of your feelings are a little more indirect in how you can control them, and they have a more indirect impact on what's going on. So those are the 10 axioms. Again, these are foundational things. You won't find these 10 foundational items in a regular school setting or in a typical public school setting. You might find something similar in a parochial school, but I seriously doubt you'll find it in most public schools. So once you accept choice theory and you accept these axioms, it starts to guide how you look at children and how you interact with children. So in the beginning, we have criteria. So originally there were 6 criteria, and the quality school group switched it, the quality school committee switched it to 5. We tried to, two of them just seemed like it made more sense to have them combined. So the first one is a Glasser quality school is a joyful place where positive, supportive, trusting learning and working environment is created and maintained. So we're looking to create a total package environment here where we trust each other, where we're positive and supportive, and it rewards being creative. And you want to maintain that sense of peace and harmony. Total learning competency is expected of all students, and students are instructionally supported until competency is achieved. This is a hallmark of Glasser quality schools. A lot of schools might have this in their brochures or as something that they aspire to do, but this is pivotal in a Glasser quality school. The object here, and Dr. Glasser was pretty adamant about it, the object here is that all students can learn if they're supported correctly and if they get enough opportunities to learn and relearn until they get the competency that's needed. Dr. Glasser believed that if you worked in the real world, only competency is accepted. When we're out on the job, nobody says that something that you do at 65%, which is a B-, is acceptable. What's acceptable is 100% correct. Now, that being said, maybe we can get by with 80% for a small margin of error. But even at that, if you're building a car and that's only 80% correct, you got a problem. So Dr. Glasser believed that schools should reflect the desire for competency much the way the world of work does. Criteria number 3, all students do competent work as well as some quality work each year. There's an emphasis on doing your work thoroughly and with quality every day. But there's a second emphasis where students are given the opportunity to do a large quality project once a year, and that once a year project could be whatever they want it, but it needs to show how they show what they've learned, and they need to put as much effort into it as they possibly can. This is a piece of quality work. Criteria number 4, all staff and students are members of the quality schools community, and they've participated in the study of choice theory and/or the Glasser quality school model. Suffice it to say, it's hard to have a Glasser quality school if nobody understands what Glasser is all about and what choice theory is all about. So a hallmark of a Glasser quality school, which makes it very different from other school or other settings, is that we are going to study what choice theory is. This, for those of us that are on the school side of things, this becomes a bit of a social emotional program inside the school setting, because we're looking at behavior, we're looking at feelings, we're looking at how do we get along with people, and so on and so on. So this part, criteria number 4, where we are focusing on choice theory or the Glasser quality school model, is important. And finally, students and educators will do well on measurements of learning and school performance. Dr. Glasser had an interesting philosophy on this. He felt that if you were teaching students to be competent and emphasizing quality and competent work, that regardless of what state assessment or what national assessment came along, your students would do very well. And you wouldn't have to worry about teaching to the test. You wouldn't have to worry about, teaching students what's on these national or state assessments if you do a competent job and a thorough job of encouraging competence. So those are the 5 criteria. Again, we have an extensive, and if you want to see the extensive rubric, you can go to glasser.com and click on quality schools, and you can find our total rubric there. It's an extensive document where we elaborate on what each one of these things are. My point here today is just to point out that these are unique to Glasser quality schools. They're well thought out, they're there, and if you adopt the quality school as your model, then you are going to adopt these, and you're going to look very different. The quality schools that we're working with right now have gone so far as to do this, and they are very different schools than the norm. Okay, so where do we begin? Couple of things. Beginning of the year introductions. Dr. Glasser likes this, to use these 6 questions. And the reason I'm including it here is because it sets the tone for what a beginning of a school year might look like in a Glasser quality school. It tells the students where they stand with the teacher, and it gives them some reasonable expectations of what the teacher is going to be looking for. All too often, expectations are blind to students. They don't know what the expectation is until after they've missed it. And from a quality school standpoint, and those of us on the quality school committee, by the way, all of us on the quality school committee are educators with, I think the 4 of us that are working most of the time, we probably have almost 200 years of, well, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, probably more like 150 years. I see Sue out there chuckling. It's probably more like 150 years of combined educational experience. So we've been around a while. And we all agree that students need to know what the target is. If they don't know what the target is, they don't know what they're shooting for. So we are of the mind that we need to know what the target is. And Dr. Glasser's 6 questions, that is the opening round of the school year, where students find out, well, what's expected of me? What will I be expected to do? And what is the teacher going to do for me? And so on. So that being said, in a Glasser quality school, we tend to think of students in 4 different ways. And this is how we relate to our students. And each one has some unique features. One, all teachers are counselors at one time or another. So as a teacher, you have to accept the notion that you're a counselor. Now, this is not a counselor in as much as you're going to be doing therapy counseling. That isn't the point. But you will be working through situations with students that will have a counseling type of relationship. You'll be helping them evaluate their situation. You'll be helping them improve their relationships with other folks and other students. So that is a key part of being a teacher. The second part of being a teacher is you have to be a manager. You have to convince and persuade those who don't want to learn what you have to teach them. You have to show the value of what we are asking them to do and explain why. Again, this is a foundational thing. Part of Dr. Glasser includes it in his writings, and he also includes this language of managing in something he calls lead management, where we don't have a coercive environment, but everybody knows what's expected. And we put value in, focusing on meeting the expectations and not asking people to do silly things that aren't related to that. Then we have the teaching aspect of it, which is getting information and knowledge and helping others build skills and competencies. Very similar to managing, although in this case, we're starting students from a point of where they may not know very much about the topic, and we're moving them forward. Again, it's very important that we ask students to explain, or not, let me back that up. It's very important that we explain to students why what they're doing is valuable. And finally, you're a friend. But as a friend and a relationship builder, you need to be very clear. And this is something that we do in schools, quality schools in particular. you need to come out and be real clear with who you are, what you'll stand for, and what you will or won't do, and what you will or won't ask of them. So students are not going to have an unreasonable expectation of what a teacher is or is not going to be, and what they are or are not going to be doing. Again, it's setting that tone, and it's laying out the criteria and the expectations so it's clear in everybody's mind. Okay, we're going to talk about moving to the locus of control, and this is something that is really unique to Glasser Quality Schools. And the short definition of external versus internal locus of control is, if somebody is telling you what to do, that's an external locus of control. If you are deciding what you're going to do, that's your internal locus of control. And in most schools, even on most job sites and in most employment areas, we are subject to external locus of control. We are always being controlled and managed, and for lack of a better word, manipulated by the higher ups to do whatever it is they want to do. In a Glasser school, we want to shift that paradigm, and we want to shift it over and put the control in the hands and the minds of the students. So Barnes Boffey, who was I believe he was a Glasser person a long time ago, it still is, he came up with a couple of ways to look at this. So let's just quickly cruise through this. So external control questioning and internal control questioning. So an external question is, why did you do that? The opposite, or the internal side of that, is, what do you want? You see, there's a very subtle difference here. Why did you do it is different than what do you want? What makes you feel this way? How would you like to handle this? Notice the subtle shift away from almost demanding an answer to encouraging the student to respond. Why can't you just do whatever? Can you think of some alternatives? You need to take responsibility. And then on the other side is, do you want to be in this situation right now? Is there a different way you'd like to handle this? Why can't you do what's being asked of you? Can you imagine a way to help the situation? You see, we're pushing that control, the focus over to the student, and we're putting the responsibility in the student's ball court, so to speak. They're the ones that are going to come up with the plan to do better or to do differently. What did you do to make him do that? How can we solve this problem? Notice it's a subtle language change, but it's a very important language change. And in a Glasser Quality School, the items on the right-hand side of your screen are much more important than the ones on the left. I can tell you that having worked with delinquents for 20 some years and then worked in administration for 20 some years, getting over to the right side of that column, getting over to that internal questioning takes a lot of work. And you have to be ever vigilant. And that's one of the hallmarks of a Glasser Quality School. You have to be ever vigilant about what you're saying and how you're saying it, so as to promote internal control, and the idea of internal locus of control. I found this as an administrator. Every now and then I would be frustrated with somebody who didn't do what they were doing, and I'd say, "Why on earth did you do that?" Well, I really don't want to know why they did it. What I want to know is how can we make this better? It's agreed that this is not where we need to be. How can we fix this? How can we make it better? And that takes a lot of discipline on the part of the teacher, on the part of an administrator, or even a parent to change that paradigm. It's very easy to slip back and be a controlling person. And down here, who screwed up here? And on the other side of it is, how else would we like things to turn out? So again, it's just looking at it from a different point of view and asking them more of the how questions and rather than the why questions. Different way to look at this, different, we're way to think about it more in a school setting is internal control begins with class meetings, where you have the shared, you can start to share expectations, and shared expectations obviously is the next thing on the list there. But students play a role in developing the expectations for the classroom. In a true Glasser quality school, students would actually in the first week or two of school actually figure out what kind of discipline and what kind of rules they would have in a classroom. There are some rules you just absolutely have to have at the building level, but even those can be subject to student participation in their development. So in an internal controlled classroom, students share in decision-making, they set individual goals for themselves, and they're continually questioning and self-evaluating. The flip side of that is that teachers are preachers. Teachers decide what's going to happen. This is the way it's going to be today. This is what we're doing. This is the assignment that you have. And the only way you can do this assignment is this way. The teacher sets the goals and the teacher tells the evaluations. So in a Glasser school, this is a pivotal change. And there are a lot of teachers, I know when I would talk about this when I was in the delinquent center and I was working with teachers, getting some teachers to shift away from the external side and moving over to letting, and in this case, think about this, letting the delinquents decide what kind of rules you're going to have. That was a stretch, but we tried it and we made it work. I'm not saying it's easy. There's nothing about this that's easy, but it can happen. Okay, now more on the choice theory side of this. When you get your needs met, and I'm going to talk about these 5 needs here in a minute, it leads to developing quality world pictures in your mind's eye. And those pictures become a need set, becomes a need satisfying place, or becoming a need satisfying place. School takes its place in the student's quality world. So if we're meeting students' needs at school, they put a picture in their head that school is really good, and it meets a quality world picture. It satisfies a need. So here are the 5 needs that we're looking for, and these needs, and again, these are foundational and they're pivotal to what's going on in a Glasser quality school, because we want to recognize these and recognize that students need to have the ability to meet these needs. The more the needs that they meet, the more likely they're going to put school in a quality world picture in their head. And if that's the case, then school is going to be really positive for students. So the first one is safety and survival. And, it's pretty much right there. It's staying alive. It's food, water, shelter, security. And in this day and age, for a lot of students, I think shelter and security are probably big deals. Although I did work with a school district here just before I retired, where the free and reduced lunch was about 80%, which meant 80% of the students were getting federal subsidy to eat, and they were sending meals home on the weekends. So these were very food insecure kids. And because they were food insecure, it's tough to focus on school if you're worried about food. And then with the whole COVID thing now, security is a big thing. Am I safe? Am I going to get the virus or whatever? So recognizing that students have these needs, and somehow I'm going to say playing to the need, but addressing the need becomes important. Everybody needs love and belonging. We need friendship, cooperation. We need caring relationships that are connected with trust. If you read anything about Dr. Glasser, the first thing you'll realize that relationships are unbelievably important, and developing relationships is of the highest order. That being said, we want to have our students develop positive relationships in the classroom, have a positive working relationship with a teacher. Power often gets kind of a bum name here. And when we talk about new people start talking about choice theory, we think of it as a controlling thing, but it's really that locus of control in your head. Do I have control over what I'm doing? Am I respected? Am I getting recognition? Am I being competent? If a student doesn't feel that they are competent, then that power need is in their world is not becoming addressed, and they will act accordingly. We have there's an old kind of saying that goes around, it's better to be bad than it is to be stupid in school. And this was true of the delinquents that I worked with. It was easier for them to be bad than it was to be stupid because they did not know the content. They could not do what was on the agenda for the day. So if they didn't understand what they were supposed to learn and master it, then that power need wasn't getting met. So competence is a big thing. If students aren't feeling competent, then that power need's not going to be met, and they're going to act accordingly. And in being heard, I just give one quick anecdote about being heard. I have a 10-year-old granddaughter, and she's the baby of the family, and she apparently never gets heard, and she likes to be heard. And if her power need gets a little bit out of whack, she makes sure that she's heard at rather high decibels, as a matter of fact. But it's the idea that she has something she wants to say, and she wants to be recognized for being able to say it. Kind of over time here at our house, when she's with us, we kind of see the signs coming. We'll say, "Hey, dear, what are you trying to tell me here? Are you trying to say something?" And just trying to bring her back down to earth and make her feel heard, and things go well from there. Everybody needs freedom, and in a Glasser quality school, that means having choices, being allowed to be creative. You want to be independent and have some autonomy, some flexibility, and so on. Having choices in how you do your assignments and sometimes which assignments you do feeds into that freedom need. And then everybody needs to have some fun, and fun can take on a lot of things. I find it interesting that Dr. Glasser says that learning is fun. I find when I accomplish something, if I'm working on a project and I get it finished, I get this warm, satisfying feeling after having learned something. Part of it is being competent, but part of it is I just learned something, and that makes me feel really good. And I get a smile on my face, and that becomes fun. So that's what we want to see in our students. When they learn something, we want them to think of this as, hey, this is really fun. This is cool. Okay, another part that is foundational and very important in choice theory and in a Glasser quality school is the questioning process. And the questioning process has a bundle of different uses in and out of choice theory. In this case, I'm saying that it helps students understand themselves. I will come back to this in a few minutes, and then one of my last slides, and we'll talk about the questioning process again, but from a different point of view. So in this case, we want students to understand who they are and what are they doing. So in the questioning process, and we've adapted these from Dr. Glasser's reality therapy, and we're using a series of questions as a dialogue. And the questions can be modified in a lot of different ways, but this is the essence of it. So what was I hoping for? And we're talking to the student. So what were you hoping for? What did I want to happen? What would you like to have seen happen? What were you shooting for? And getting the student to do that introspective part of what was I looking for and what did I want to happen? Then it's a bit of a self-evaluation here. What did I do? And what were my thoughts and feelings when I did it? So we're getting the student to take a look at, and a lot of times kids do things and they kind of operate on this automatic level, and they don't stop and think about these things. So we're trying to slow the process down and get them to think through some things. And then the next question is, well, was I effective? Did I get what I want? And if I didn't get what I want, how else might I go about it? again, it's the kind of the self-awareness thing that we're trying to build. I'll come back to these questions again in a few minutes, but it'll be in a slightly different way. But this part is to start getting students, one of the trendy things to talk about these days is mindfulness. And to get students to understand what they're doing is to get them into thinking through things. And we have to do this in a covert, conscious sort of way. Or not a covert, an overt, conscious sort of way. Okay, and another part of this, we at Glasser Quality Schools, and we're just finishing putting the finishing touches on this month's Glasser Quality School Forum Call, where we talk about decision making. And I stole this from from our current PowerPoint, as a matter of fact. And it's decision. We teach students how to make decisions and choices. And decision making is a skill, and it can and must be taught, and it takes practice. Now, we just devoted at the Glasser Quality School Committee, we just devoted a month planning a PowerPoint that's going to last about an hour, just answering this question. I can't put an hour's worth into telling you how important decision making is in the school setting, but you can't assume or presume that students know how to do this. We need to start teaching them some skills. So one way is to give them a little chart like this. This is one possibility. What do you want? What do I have to do? And kind of walk them through the questions. These questions look very similar to the reality therapy questions. Here we go again. Those questions become foundational because now they help us to figure out how to make decisions. In the end, we want students to be able to evaluate their work after they've made some decisions and they've done a lot of other things. We want them to be able to evaluate their work and get into self-evaluation. That is, again, it's a critical part of what a Glasser Quality School is. Students are asked to constantly evaluate what they're doing. Dr. Glasser put out the CSER strategy, and basically it says, show us what you did, explain how you did it, evaluate your work, how well did you do, can you improve this work, and then repeat the self-evaluation improvement process until you get it to a place where you want it to be. Self-evaluation is built into everything that you do every single day. A lot of times teachers give an assignment and kids complete it and they just turn it in and it's done and they move on to the next thing. If you never ask a student to stop and take a look at what they did, they will never stop and take a look at what they did. And if you never ask them, how could you make this better? Then they will never attempt to make it better. So as a Glasser Quality School, self-evaluation is a critical component that you don't normally see. And again, it's an everyday, every way sort of thing. It goes back to the decision making, that you have to teach it and you have to practice it day in and day out. And this is what makes one of the things that makes a quality school a quality school. It also gets at leading to quality performance, because you're getting, if a student looks at it and says, if I can do this and get a D on it, I'm going to be good. And what we want the student to do is get the B or higher. And unless we ask the student, is this the best you can do? Or we ask the students, is there a way you can improve this? Then the student gets the idea, all right, I can move this up. And if you ask that question often enough, they'll start to ask the question of themselves. I find myself even doing this, getting ready for this PowerPoint. I'm looking at it at 10:30 this morning, Eastern Standard Time. I'm looking at the PowerPoint saying, there's something I can do to make this better. Although at that point in time, it's a little late, but I'm still constantly asking myself the question, is there something I can do to make this better? So wrapping it all up, what makes this Glasser Quality School different and unique and separates it from other schools is we have Glasser choice theory. We have foundational things like axioms. We have our criteria. We focus on building relationships. We focus on being needs satisfying. We focus on self-evaluation, and we focus on doing competent work. Those are some of those things you'll find in a regular school setting, but you'll never find that complete package. And with that, Mona, I'm at slide 15.
Well,
So
all
we have
right.
thoughts and ideas.
Okay, sounds good. That was really, I like the way that you detailed each specific thing, but yet it wrapped up by saying how that it is, well, it's staying power. It's thought out and it's effective. And you helped us to see that. So you want to stop sharing, and we'll chat here for just a minute, and then we'll close out for the public, and those that are present can ask you some questions. But I liked how you talked about staying present and helping the child to realize they have learned and they can learn. That because they have learned something, that shows, help them to self-evaluate the fact that, yeah, if I did do that, it's possible that I could do something else. And so on your expectations, the ways of relating, can you just briefly share those 4 qualities of relation, how you relate to the students?
Let me quick grab my notes here so I don't miss anything. As a counselor and a manager and a teacher and a friend. Those are teachers, teachers, we generally tend to think of teachers as being people who just give information. But if you talk to someone and you start to push their thinking a little bit, suddenly teachers become much more than just information givers. There's something else. And so we have to think about all the things that a teacher would do. This is not unlike being a manager, because as a manager, I found myself, when I was an administrator, I found myself, there would be the moments when I'd be talking to people and I felt more like a counselor, kind of working through an issue with someone. But then on the other hand, I've got an agenda as a teacher and a manager. I have to get information over. I have to get a job done. And so recognizing and being conscious about that, again, it's a bit of that mindfulness sort of thing, being conscious that, yes, I'm a teacher. Yes, I'm a manager or an administrator, but at different times, I'm going to be in different places. I'm going to be in different roles. And so as that person, I need to be aware of and think about where I'm at with those roles. Am I a manager right now? Am I a teacher, or am I a counselor? And in some cases, am I a friend? And if I'm a friend, then I need to, and if I'm a friend, a manager, or a teacher, and I'm trying to be a friend, then I need to set some real clear boundaries about what I'm going to be and what I'm going to do. Just because I'm being friendly to you and being a friend does not mean you can have carte blanche and walk all over me. That's not going to happen. So that's why we have to think about those 4 relationships. We all engage in them at some time. Even a parent will engage in the 4 relationships in the course of a day being with our children and not even think about it. But as a teacher and in a school setting, we have to think about it, because it sets the expectation so the students don't get confused about who you are and what you're doing. And it makes the lines of communication much cleaner.
And so if we're constantly thinking about which role we are actually engaged in, we can be more effective.
Yes. Short answer, yes.
Yes, yes. And also, does that have a change in inflection of voice and maybe demeanor?
Oh yeah, if you're being a counselor, if you're a parent, you're being in the counselor role, you're probably going to be consoling your child and trying to help them feel better. And yeah, that changes your voice. Where if you're in that managing thing and you want to get something done, then you use a different tone of voice.
Right. And because all of those things help set the atmosphere, it also impacts the student that you're working with, or students.
Correct. Correct.
But
Yep.
it's in a more positive way rather than putting them down. It's elevating them to become all they can be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was absolutely wonderful. And I'm thinking of a couple of teachers that I want to invite them to participate in your quality school sessions that you have,
Well,
because
thank you.
I think it could be so very vital to them. Thank you for being here, Jim. We appreciate you very, very much. And all of you that are watching live, we're going to close down the airways, and you can stay around and pick Jim's brain some more and get some more information from him, as well as share some information. In the meantime, we thank you for being here, and good mental health and many blessings.